All right. Hey everyone. So for my final project, I decided to do three different kinship systems. The three kinship systems I'm going over are the traditional Chinese kinship system in mainland China, pre-contact Native Hawaiian kinship in Hawaii, obviously, and traditional kinship patterns of the Igbo people in Nigeria. So to start off with, we go to the traditional Chinese kinship system. It's classified or it's part of the overall larger group of the known as the Sudanese or descriptive system for defining family. Um, that group of kinship systems is considered one of the most complicated types of kinship patterns and systems. It's considered that way because they often contain a separate designation for just about every family member, um, based on their generation, their lineage, their relative age to you, and their gender. And as such, they are very complicated, as you can see in the diagram. They are essentially the term for just about every family member. It's going to be different from anyone who's even considerably similar in terms of family descent. Currently, this kinship pattern is actually on the decline as the ruling Communist Party of China is emphasizing the more traditional, not I mean traditional, but the more Western idea of the nuclear family. So one parent, one child. I mean, two parents, one child, that kind of thing. And as such a complicated kinship system is kind of unnecessary in such a small society as this, as they're trying to get, I guess I should say. As for the next one is pre-contact Hawaiian kinship patterns. It's by far the simplest of the familiar classifications. It's also known as the generational system. Though Hawaiians aren't the first society to have been documented using this kinship pattern, and it is that Hawaiians are what it is named after. Um, in the system, relatives are only distinguished by their gender and their generation. So your parents, as well as your aunts and uncles, are all considered mothers or uncles. Same thing with your cousins; they're all brothers or sisters, depending on their gender. It's found in over one third of all societies, though it's often only found in small societies, as um, it is believed, I guess, that such a simple system just doesn't work well in larger societies with much larger families. It's also in the decline of current Hawaiian culture. It's the use of the terms by what they traditionally meant is very uncommon, and they are much more often used for like slang or casual conversation. And they don't really mean what they used to, due to um, American culture kind of overtaking the native Hawaiian culture. The last one I have is the traditional Igbo kinship patterns. It's an interesting one as it actually derives several features from both the Hawaiian system as well as the Omaha system. Um, it places a great emphasis on the matrilineal line, regardless of one's stations in life. The mother plays a very important role in Igbo society, regardless. But as you can see in the diagram, though it is a little more complicated than the Hawaiian system, it is still relatively simple compared to, say, something like the Chinese system or even the system that most European cultures use. As of currently in the modern world, this form of system is also in the decline as most of Africa, as you'll probably know, was colonized by white European cultures, and as such, much of the native kinship system used by the Igbo was supplanted and replaced with traditional Christian kinship patterns of mother, father, aunt, uncle, that kind of thing. Though even in modern culture, the importance of mothers in Igbo society is still very important, regardless of the fact that much of the Igbo society now follows either Christian, standard Christian kinship patterns or Muslim kinship patterns. Those are the two most common religions in that part of the world, in that country now. As for the final slide with culture with similarities, these cultures I feel are very different. They all kind of run the gamut, like I'd say gambit of simple, intermediate, and complicated. Obviously, they all do share the use of mother and father, as well as the fact that they're all three systems that are not very commonly used anymore in their native societies that they originated from. But otherwise, the Igbo and the Hawaiian probably share the most similarities in just the fact that they're so much more simple than, like, say, the Chinese system. Though, like I said, the Hawaiian system is by far the most simple. Difference-wise, I'd say there's a lot of differences. You know, the Chinese system is just this vast, complicated web of different terms. While the Igbo system kind of falls in between the two. It's still not necessarily as complicated as many European kinship systems, but it's still much more complicated than Hawaiian. As well as the fact that the Igbo system is just very unorthodox, as it steals or takes several factors from different kinship systems. Well, the other two, the Chinese and Hawaiian system, adhere very closely to their parent system, or are named after, or are the originator of the title in the case of the Hawaiian system. In comparison to my culture, I would say there's not a whole lot that these cultures share with my cultural background personally. Obviously, mother, father, that's kind of universal. But outside of that, I would say that, like, for example, the Chinese system is much too complicated for it to be really any similar at all to my culture. But the Hawaiian system is way too simple to really relate to in any way, like personally. The Igbo system is probably by the closest of the three, but I would still say it's a little too simple, and places too much, way more importance on mothers than my family background does. But it is probably of the three the most closely defined. As for what I kind of want to leave everyone with a question on this is kind of the thought of what how your own culture and, like, upbringing would have changed if your family had raised you together with a much more complicated kinship system, such as the Chinese system, or a very simple one, such as the Hawaiian system. But overall, that's my presentation. Thanks for watching.